Matt Wake.
Bill Fowler.
Here, you need to push your mic that way.
Right on. Thank you, sir.
It's, here to help. We're doing this podcast about local music, and this is really all your fault because I pressured you. Strong-armed is probably not the right word, but whatever, just north of pressure would be and constantly you and I would have these discussions.
Great discussions about music and stuff.
Fantastic. Hours-long discussions about, things as valuable as Van Halen with or without David Lee Roth. There are heated debates at times.
And don't forget the Sharon section of that discussion.
And there were some other things that we probably shouldn't talk about that we discussed music-wise. But the point being is that I saw the value in those things, walking away from those things. You are, if not a national treasure, a regional treasure, and most definitely a local treasure. You're just a treasure.
I'll put the money in your account tonight.
So Matt Wake, you're the entertainment writer for, what are you?
I'm a staff entertainment writer with AL.com. I also freelance everything from Paste Magazine a few years back to LA Weekly for a few years, written a couple of things for Rolling Stone, just wrote something for Billboard. So
let me just roll back and your like nonchalant delivery of I've written a couple of things for Rolling Stone. Like you're such a badass and you're like, well, it's no big deal. Rolling Stone, I do that every now and then when they call. And so because when I talk to musicians, sounding like this is episode 4, by the way. So sounding like I've been like I'm a seasoned veteran is when I talk to musicians, I asked them to bring in some.
I like your earlier greater stuff better.
When I talk to musicians, I asked them to bring in an MP3 so we can play their stuff before we start talking to kind of give people a flavor of what's going to happen. Since you didn't bring any MP3, I'm going to read something real quick, and I'm going to read something out of the last thing you did for Rolling Stone, which was, and I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here. I'm saying this because this is true. Like there was a grand debate on social media about Greta Van Fleet as their relationship to Led Zeppelin.
Right on. Yeah.
And you wrote this piece. Do you call it a piece? Is that people who are cool as you say? What do you say?
A story, a piece.
All right.
Thing.
Well, it was so beautiful, and this is the greatest paragraph you've ever written. Okay. And it goes as follows. The hands of time can soften or shift perception of a clone-saddled rep. Oasis songs like Don't Look Back in Anger are now widely considered bona fide classics. Once criticized by outlets like Rolling Stone for lifting Led Zeppelin's sound for his early 1995 track Rock and Roll is Dead, Kravitz is probably now more respected than ever for his multi-instrumental talents and the durability of his early hits like It Ain't Over Till It's Over. It works the other way too. In 2018, Wolfmother is a Zepp imitator punchline, even if Wolfmother singer Andrew Stockdale sounds more like Black Sabbath era Ozzy Osbourne than Robert Plant. But at the time, the first 2 early 2000s Wolfmother albums received solid reviews for some notable media outlets. That right there, and here, this is my point with you. You're a musician in your own right, and you're a writer. You have this ear that I'm not sure that a lot of entertainment writers have because of your experience in music, that you can hear those kinds of things and you can bring those kinds of comparisons into your writing that a lot of other people can't do.
Well, thank you. And you have to watch that because it's kind of like, I see it kind of like, the analyst guy, like on a college football game, guy who played quarterback or whatever. Now the good ones can help you break it down because they've been inside the huddle. They know what goes on there, but they don't think they could still throw for 300 yards a game.
Right.
So, and there are some people who think former musicians don't make good music writers because they can't get kind of outside of that. But I think as long as you kind of use it as a thing of like, the inside of it and the outside of it as a fan, how to connect those two, that can be used. Like if a band has a Hammond organ player, I bet they have a funny story about lugging that thing up a stairs through somewhere, as opposed to being like trying to out music notation the source or the interviewee or whatever.
So when you write a piece for Rolling Stone, how hard is it?
Mm-hmm.
That's a humongous stage and an iconic publication.
Yeah.
How hard is it to just stare at that blank page and write something worthy of that? And how long does it take you to craft something like that?
Stuff like that, and even like in-depth things like the stuff I did for LA Weekly. It takes a lot of digging and also a lot of research, a lot of interviews. The Rolling Stone thing, I think it pretty much took about 8 hours. Interviews and transcriptions and everything. Transcriptions are the son of a gun of, doing these things, because they take usually twice as long as the interview did.
Yeah.
Because you're going back to, especially the higher up you get, you always want to quote people accurately, but the higher up you get and the more kind of famous the people are, you want to make quadruple sure.
Sure.
But
as for example, Kurt Loder, who you quoted several times in the article that I just read from.
Yeah.
Anybody who is of a certain age and remembers MTV when it was actually music television, Kurt Loder, who one of the best music writing and music media resumes in the industry, was an iconic figure in MTV, and you have his email address.
Yeah, and afterwards he was like emailing me recommendations for like punk rock compilations, and well, I mean, people. We grew up with Kurt, on the MTV News, but I remember he wrote. I'm pretty sure he wrote the liner notes for the Led Zeppelin box set in 1990, which were just killer. Yeah, really killer. Yeah. Like he was using. I think I still remember some of the turns of phrases like colossally wasted and stuff like that he was describing, like all the members except John Paul Jones were colossally wasted, right, or whatever. I think he called Planet intergalactic stud. in that and it just, the people who can turn a phrase quickly and colorfully. Yeah. I mean, it's like a guitar player who can play something that blows you away but can get there in 3 notes. Yeah.
Right. That's the craft. That's the craft that you create. So I'm going to pause real quickly and just explain where we're sitting. Like you and I, and I've said this a few times already, but just to reset, in case this is the first episode someone is listening to, all the Matt Wake fans jump right to this episode 4 because, of course, why would they not? We are at the top of the Huntsville Times building in Huntsville, Alabama. The windows are open. It is a beautiful night. We are going to probably hear trains. Along with, so there's a little bit of an ambient situation going on here, but that's good. It makes it authentic. And
which train? Drops of Jupiter or? Oh
God, we're already there. And producer Doug is here. Thank you, Doug, for being here. It's a beautiful night. And so, just for everybody's information, Matt and I went to high school together. He's been a friend for a very long time, and this podcast is taking as it's taking shape. It's really about the local music scene and the significance of the local music scene as it is right now, and also where it's been, where we're headed. If there's anybody who's qualified to speak to that, not only just having been born and raised here, but you've also traveled far and wide as a musician and as a writer around music, other music scenes around the country. You certainly have experience in other large markets. I really wanted you early in the experience here, because number one, of the credibility that you bring, and I mean that
Thanks, man. That's really nice of you.
With no sarcasm whatsoever, but also just because you're an incredibly informed person and somebody I think who has a lot of opinions on this. So I want to. We've established where you are. Kind of what your credibility is evident in the fact that you're just a prolific writer of music, both here locally and also nationally. And I don't know that people who live in Huntsville just understand exactly what we have in you as a resource.
Well, that's very nice of you. I do feel very appreciated by the music community. And it's funny, you were talking about like the pressure of writing something for Rolling Stone. Funny enough, man, like when I'm writing a story about someone I've known for a long time, like for AL.com.
Yeah.
you know, like I wrote a story on Dave Anderson, who was and his son Stone, a couple of Father's Days ago. You know, because father and son, professional musician here, and how great is it to have like the cornerstone people like Dave Anderson, who are just like the coolest, best dudes.
Yeah, right.
Dave Gallagher, Microwave Dave, same. But like, I feel as much pressure when I'm writing something like that than I am for Rolling Stone, because one, they're awesome musicians, people like that, but also you know them, and you want to make sure everything your name on is cool. Like, not everything you cover is Jimi Hendrix or but it can be interesting and good in its own way, and you bring that out in a non hyperbole way.
So tell me, let's take a little pause here, and let's go back to your early years, which you and I, our paths crossed probably early in high school, but there's a point in my life that I'm fairly certain that music kind of took over for me. And there's a moment for you when you decided that this was going to be a significant part of your life. Like, do you have a moment or a time when you know that took place?
I was one of those kids watching MTV in 1987 when MTV finally played the Welcome to the Jungle video for the first time at like 5 in the morning or 3 in the morning. I was spending the night at a friend's house in a sunken den in South Huntsville in one of those big TVs, like a piece of furniture. And I liked, Motley Crue was the first band I loved.
Yeah.
And I liked music at that point. A musical family, mom plays the hell out of the piano, like Scott Joplin stuff. Grandfather did like Hank Williams kind of country singing. But I didn't have like a cool older sibling, so I didn't get fed like REM or cool like 80s stuff. So my stuff I got from like the rock radio locally, or MTV, or Circus Magazine at Kroger with my mom's shopping. Hit Parader, yes.
Yeah.
And so I loved Motley Crue, I loved the grooves, and I loved the songwriting, singing about like danger, chicks, and like, it was everything I wanted to do. But 15, I'm not going to do that. But anyway, so watching MTV at my friend's house, they play the Welcome to the Jungle video. And, a lot of that other stuff I still like, of the arena metal stuff, but this was just a total different. This was on like Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones level of badassery.
Right.
And I just remember watching that video and being like, and I think soon after that they announced that GNR was opening for Motley. So I was like, wow, I'm going to buy this tape. I'd play the tape for people. And people liked Welcome to the Jungle, but the rest of it, they'd be like, they've got like 4 singers. I'm like, no, it's one guy.
Yeah.
But
and then they opened for Motley Crue here.
You saw that, right?
And yes. And this is the kind of conversations that you and I have all the time. This conversation right now is why I want to have a podcast. There is a moment when you have there's the hair metal thing was happening. The REM thing had happened, Hoodoo Gurus, and like this kind of soft and fuzzy, jangly Rickenbacker kind of almost acoustic rock stuff.
Yeah.
And Motley Crue was kind of waning in there. They had like giant inflatable motorcycles. I mean, something's clearly wrong with that presentation. And then Guns N' Roses comes on the scene, and I knew of them very similar to you. Like, I saw what was happening on MTV, saw the video, probably stayed up the same way you did, and had that tape. And then suddenly you see them in person. And so the way this works, everybody knows this. You go to a rock concert in the BBC, for example, and the Motley Crue stage took over half of the arena. And so Guns N' Roses, who had to set up their drums like on the front 1/5 of the stage, and they just blew the roof off the place.
Yeah.
And then Motley Crue comes out with this overproduced, lip-synced backup singer, like just dog and pony show that was trying so hard. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And you knew something was changing. This is like the moment when you hear Smells Like Teen Spirit. This is the
Yeah.
moment when you hear these, like, clearly there is a inflection point in popular music, and it just turned a hard right. And that's what you're talking about, is when you felt like this is important, this is my thing, I can really hold on to that. And that was Guns N' Roses.
And I think GNR was a total part of the line to like Nirvana and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of times I'll hear like the early Nirvana stuff or some of the Nevermind stuff. I'm like, that sounds a lot like Guns N' Roses, but without the good lead guitar playing, and the bass is kind of higher. And but I mean, it's not, the haircuts and the clothes are different, and they're singing about different stuff, but his vocals are kind of shreddy like Axl's were, you know, super aggressive. But I mean, I was always a kid that, and maybe you probably were too, were like, I was always a liner note reader.
Yeah.
You know, who produced it? Where did they record the studio? What studio?
Oh, yeah.
Who did they thank?
Yeah.
Who wrote the songs?
I knew who Butch Vig was.
Yeah.
You know, and suddenly he turns up as the drummer for Garbage, and I'm like, well, that is really interesting.
But that stuff's connected.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and I, again, we're looking through the back in time here, but so this is Huntsville High. You're in high school.
Yeah.
You're playing like I remember, like you're kind of your garage band guy, just like I was, and you're playing during that period. Were you playing during that period?
I didn't start playing guitar until the very end of last year of high school, but I always thought like the dudes like you and like Jeff Nicks and like people like that, I was always like, I was more doing like sports, baseball kind of thing, but I always envied the guys who you guys, especially later when I started doing bands in college, like you guys all played in bands with your friends.
Yeah.
Like I started playing later, and so it was more you'd try to find three other guys who had a big enough overlap in taste.
Right.
But eventually you wouldn't hate. Right. You didn't hate, but eventually one or two of them would hate you, and you'd hate one or two of them, and like because you wouldn't hang out otherwise.
Yeah. Right.
And I was always thought it was so cool of like the high school garage bands in Huntsville, like they were these little pocket of friends. And
well, the only reason why I started earlier than you did is because I was less athletic earlier than you were. At some point, you decide you're not going to be Troy Aikman, and it's probably best that you pick up a guitar or just come up with anything, you know. But yeah, we and I've discussed with Alan a little bit, like, and at the time there was Grissom, and there was Huntsville, and there's, you know, I knew some guys that went to Butler who were musicians. That was an exceptional time. Video games had not completely like taken over that age group, and you were either a superstar athlete or the rest of the kids, you were like, well, music was important. MTV was channel 24 on our cable, so there's only like 30 or 40 channels. So the odds were that you were going to get exposed to that stuff a lot more than you were anything else. And there was a lot of people that were just playing. A lot of people had guitars. A lot of people were in bands. And there were 24 kids in my neighborhood that just swapped.
We did a story on that about 6 or 7 years ago.
We did it, and it was I don't know if that's. I guess that's exceptional, but it was just the times. I don't want to be the guy who's like, oh, back in my day, you know. But I think we've lost some mystique around getting a guitar for your 6th birthday or 6th grade birthday, and you're like, I'm gonna go, you know, jam out until my fingers bleed. And
even like dudes who weren't in bands, like friends of people in bands, would know how to play one or two songs, at least the licks. Yeah. And back then, I think, I think one of the things Huntsville and a lot of, Dave touched on this, Dave Anderson, on your interview with him, but something that's really changed is the hardcore people who really love local music and that's important to them. That's still there. But a thing that's really changed is social adulthood doesn't revolve around going to the tip top. Like people who are casually to moderately interested in music, but they would go to the tip top because there was action there, man. There'd be dudes and chicks there, and you could have a big night and, you know, maybe have a nice time afterwards. Like, I don't think the moderate and the casual fans, I don't think they go to music bars anymore.
Okay, so is that a question of the environment, or is that a question of what's competing with that? Like, you have Netflix, you've got the ability to stay home and cocoon. That was a term we used to use in advertising all the time. People are cocooning more because entertainment is literally on your phone. Like I watched Game of Thrones last night, or on Sunday night, on my phone.
Yeah.
The fact that competes, that on a given Saturday night back when we were of that age, there really wasn't anything else going on except for somebody playing at, some club.
Oh, totally. And there's a lot more bars and stuff now, and a lot of them don't have music. And also, like, okay, and this is kind of like tangential here, but okay, you think of like the social aspect of going to like a rock bar in 1992 or whatever. Like, okay, so yeah, people are having some drinks, and so your inhibition is lower a little bit, and you might say hello to somebody that you've never met before, not being creepy, but just young people that in a social environment. That's how you meet new people sometimes. Now people can do that on social media. That someone, they friends them or they friend them that knows somebody else they know. And on social media, people, it's, super well documented that people have lower inhibitions. Like, hey, what's up? And that's kind of just the social stuff has been rewired to such an extent.
Right.
I think that cannot be underestimated in the challenges local and regional artists face.
Yeah, I wonder if what we're seeing is more of a show being a regular Friday night or a Saturday night where you used to do that was part of your plan. Go see a band play.
Yeah.
And now going to see a band play is more of an event, like what Alan's doing with Listen Local, what Black Jacket Symphony is. And this is something that you plan 2 months in advance. You buy tickets for, and you go to see that. Like what Eddie's doing at Sidetracked, I think is incredible. Is like he's getting regional acts to come through, so he's playing in on that. It's an event. Like, and I'm not saying that there's necessarily something wrong with that, but it does kind of stunt the garage band ascension up the chain of venues, because the casual, as you said, you're relying on the hardcore live music fans. Not the casual person isn't just going to go see a show because that's something to do.
And there's a whole other subtext of like, there's a couple of places that do house shows regularly here. I'm sure a lot of people in their 20s, I mean, hell, man, like economics of a young gun, man. Can I buy a 12-pack and go to a party at a house show where they've got bands and people my age?
Right.
And the overhead versus
Sure.
and that's their crowd anyway. So,
Sure.
I mean, that's a silo is kind of a business speak thing, but I think that's, and I put something out on Facebook a while back, and I think some people took it the wrong way, but I should have set the age a little lower, but my question was, okay, so who is right now in Huntsville the hot son of a gun guitar players?
Yeah.
I said under 30, but I should have said under 25.
Yeah.
But and why is that important? Because just like I'm not the future of music writing, the future of music isn't somebody my age either. That doesn't mean they can't do awesome stuff, and it's important and, has a soul and experience to it. But like, who's the hot son of a gun or girl guitar player that's 20?
I remember
22.
this, and I remember a lot of people not being able to answer you.
Or they tell me somebody, it's like, I'm 35, dudes.
Right. Dave Anderson. Right. I mean, like.
Oh, dude, and like the thing about Dave
No
is
offense, Dave,
his greatness is so understated. Like a lot of people here see him in the context of the solo shows.
Yeah.
But dude can play like Ed Van Halen licks like I'm tying my shoe.
Yeah. We discussed this when I was talking to him, and we had the 10,000 hour discussion. I mean, I keep bringing this up because he cut his teeth and he went someplace and just became amazing.
Disney.
And came back and he was a different dude.
I think another thing we face in Huntsville too, we have talented songwriters, talented singers, we are getting some cool ways to present the best stuff we have on, give them the best chance to be consumed by casual fans. Like the Concerts on the Dock putting Quantaphonics for their first, the opening thing. That's a great booking.
Yeah.
Because that's a thing casual people go to. It's affordable. It starts at 6. It's in a non-threatening thing.
Families, kids, it's an easy thing. Yeah.
That gives them the best chance of turning on new customers, new fans or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think customer supplies. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. But I think that a challenge we face in Huntsville is Huntsville's so nice to live, man. It's not like you think of like a lot of great music comes where it is such a hard place to live that all you can afford to do is sit there when you're not working your crappy job to help make ends meet or rehearsing with your band or playing gigs. All you can do is sit there in your crappy apartment with no TV or internet, playing your keyboard or playing your drums or your guitar and writing songs. I mean, it is a very good quality of life here. And, you know, is the next Izzy Stradlin and Axl Rose living with 3 guys in a thing the size of a closet and eating SpaghettiOs for 2 years here. All they can do is write songs. Okay,
so on the same side of that argument, do you think that also translates to the customer, the music fan? If there's lots to do, if we have a great quality of life, and on any given day, you can go see an arts festival, or you can go down the street and run a 5K for St. Jude or whatever, instead of going to the ratty club in Trenton, New Jersey. I mean, that's all there is to do in that town. So you go there every single weekend to see the band who also has nothing to do except for play music. It's like a one-to-one. That has to have something to do with it as well.
Oh, totally. It like, you know, and we have a really nice array of artists here. And the thing I just, Athens, Georgia didn't turn into a hotbed because they had good PAs at the 40-watt club. It's because they had a bunch of creative people writing really good songs.
Yeah.
And they created magnetic thing. We need, in my opinion, the most important thing is give our most talented artists the best pedestal and the best chance to be appreciated by casual fans.
Okay, so we had this consulting group come in.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of on the fence about. I believe it was necessary. I'm glad we did it. I mean, I think one of the things that the testament to our city's placing importance on arts and entertainment and culture is the fact that they were hired. Whatever comes out of that is cake.
Yeah.
But do you feel like that we have not only a vibrant music scene, but a music scene that can grow and add value to this community without adjustment? What needs to take place in order for us to grow that community into being something that's a selling point for Huntsville, not just rockets and so forth?
Okay, what works best here for music consumption, live music consumption for both artists and the people watching them? Examples: Concerts on the Dock. Okay, so that's and we have some friends who do in bars and clubs that do an awesome job with it. I mean, Eddie getting Greta Van Fleet in there. I mean, that's before Stapleton. That's probably the most heat-seeking, holy cow, that came to Huntsville show in the last few years.
Yeah.
So great stuff. And all the downtown places and elsewhere, and all the way down to like South Huntsville or whatever. But like, so I think more things like Concerts on the Dock that are in non-bar situations that like a cool, I love the camp out at University Drive. It's a challenge because it's out there.
Right. And it's subject to weather.
If you have a place that, and Concerts on the Dock is subject to weather too, but like, I think if you put more things, because we've already kind of established, I'm not sure you can depend on it just, I had different interests when I was young than people that were like my friend's older brother's age or my dad's age when they were young. So it's not a thing of like, oh, I was smart and cool because I was into going to shows and these kids are lame because they're not. It's just stuff changes.
Right.
So, but I do think you have people our age who, I don't remember my parents going out to concerts like we do now.
Right.
So that's a market.
Yeah.
So I think more shows and concerts on the dock and the camp type things that start earlier that are non-bar kind of traditional things, especially concerts on the dock. I'm going to quit saying that because I feel like it's a drinking game every time I say it. The people at home have to drink. But like, but the thing is, I mean, you have to think of what's been effective in this market and what's worked. So stuff like that.
If you could change anything, like if you've lived in big markets, you've been around and you've been writing music forever. If you could change something about what's going on here, do you feel like there's an organic growth going on that really just needs to be identified and fostered and just kind of allowed to grow? Or do you think there's a block that needs to be removed for things to really blow up here?
Well, I mean, we have some. I mean, I went and saw Rob Aldridge and the Proponents last Friday out there at the Mid-City Camp thing, and Rob is a very strong rock songwriter, and he is a very effective live singer too. His band sharp. We have some really great, really talented people who I just think we need to give them the best shot of being appreciated. And I think people are doing that in pockets. And it's weird because I don't know if there's a magic bullet, but I mean, I do think, a thing we're missing is, and you don't want to be like I know Tip Top is kind of mythologized a little bit, but that was a place where I remember like young bands, if we could only play there once, we made it. Where is that place now in Huntsville? Where's the one place where young bands or, younger bands, if we play there once, we've made it? Is it one of these cool house shows, Is it a show at Low Mill? I don't know, but I mean, I think that's an important, like whether it's Tip Patina's in New Orleans or playing like the Troubadour, the Roxy, or Whiskey A Go-Go in Hollywood, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, this is one of the things that came out of that consulting report. One of the things that I remember is this ladder of ascension. The venue ladder of ascension is an important element of a healthy music scene. I think we've got it. I think if we don't have it right now, we're well on our way to having it.
Mercantile, 1,200 cap room,
right.
Amphitheater.
Right.
Those are three big slots.
It's the worst kept secret in Huntsville is that we need more music venues. Of course, so they're coming. Whether or not they're successful, whether or not they do the right thing for the community, I think a lot of these blocks are falling into place. The right combination of those things is yet to be seen. But what I have felt, and you and I have talked about this many times, is we have a vibrant music community.
Oh yeah.
That is struggling to find places to plug in, struggling to find places to become exposed. And I'm going to say this boldly. I think that Huntsville has been a distracted city for a very long time. We're distracted by.
How so?
Well, we're a city of engineers. We're a city of people who have other things to worry about. I mean, when we need, like, defense contractors just is what, 2/3 of our economy or more than that. We're having to shoot missiles at people and make sure they land properly. I mean, that's more important than seeing like a Tom Petty cover band down at, whatever.
Yeah.
Their blowing off steam is just different than what normal people's blowing off steam is. We all know engineers, God bless them. I love all of them, by the way. Thank you for what you do. But there's a very small bohemian culture in Huntsville that supports our music community, and it's getting bigger. I just think that we need We need more exposure, and exposure is this nebulous term that's very hard to quantify. The venues are coming along. The people are realizing. I think the city realizes that arts and entertainment culture is absolutely critical to what makes a city grow and survive.
Because what's going to happen is these, all these jobs come in here, but when these people get a few more years of experience, they'll say, well, I'm driving once a month to Nashville or Birmingham to go do, super awesome big marquee stuff.
Right.
I'll get a job there.
Sure.
But I mean, like, the hardest thing in the world, I mean, it's hard to be good live, for a band to be good live, right? Like, where you can rock a damn crowd, big room full of people, and it be the best night, not only of their week, but of their month, maybe.
Right.
That's difficult. But what's even more difficult is writing a song. Okay, that's like Saturday at midnight, rocking a room full of people in a bar. But it's even harder to write a song that people, let alone a whole album that people want to listen to at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Right.
That's just hard as hell. And the people who are really good at it make a lot of money.
Right, as they should. Okay, so big picture stuff. You and I have talked about this before. I think we have a pretty good music situation in Huntsville and have for a long time. There are some things that are broken. I think they're in the process of being fixed.
Yeah.
Obviously, people like me and you and the folks that are laying out a lot of money to make sure that the venues that are about to be opened up are a good experience. We were drawing on experiences from Nashville. I mean, that's what we're competing with. You said, like, people are driving to Nashville and Birmingham to see bands. That's who we're competing with. And I think it's going to happen. I'm very optimistic about what's going on. And I think you are too, just with the venue situation. And that's an easy thing to say. It's easy to pick on the venues because you don't like a certain place or it's too far away or whatever. The other thing that I think we need is just the support of the working musician. I mean, sitting in your chair just a few minutes ago was Victoria Jones. She's a working musician. I mean, she has another job, but there are in big markets, it is possible, it is conceivable to be a full-time musician and make a living. And that's, I mean, we can talk about minimum wage, we can talk about a lot of things, but I think we can talk about giving back to the community. And I think that's something that Huntsville is lacking right now, is the ability to support a system of support for a working artist, not just music. You can look at Low Mill. There's some amazingly talented people there, and we just don't have that. It's not our nature. We're getting there. It's not our nature, but we're getting there. Anyway, that's my stump speech on supporting local artists.
I'm gonna vote for you with your stump speech.
Thanks. I was thinking about running for something.
A thing I think would be also, they're kind of, there tends to be like these things. We have some great experienced artists here, and we have some interesting younger artists, like some of the indie things. There's a band called Snacks that does some interesting stuff. But I rarely see like the experienced bands and the kind of newer edgy bands together. And I know it all doesn't fit, but I think there might be some opportunities there where some of the stuff does overlap, like put a show with Microwave Dave on the bill and also Quantaphonics. Put a show, some of these things, because I think it would be both good for the experienced artist and for the newer.
Whose responsibility is that?
Everything is business, right? Everything, the music business. If a band you like isn't together, the original lineup, somebody doesn't like the numbers, the money split.
I'm going to say it's your responsibility because you are an influencer. You are a driver of opinion. You have the largest look. Don't just blow this off. You have what? Yeah, Doug is agreeing.
Yes.
You have the largest voice in the city, and you can, let's say, spit out these opinions, but really you can change. Yeah,
Yeah, but the thing is, it's easy for me to say that when I don't have thousands of dollars on the line.
You don't need thousands. You can pressure the right people. Let's just take your idea of Microwave Dave and Quantaphonics, and let's just say the camp. The weather's getting better. We're still sitting here on the top floor at a skyscraper in Huntsville.
Yeah.
And you could say, wouldn't it be great to go see Microwaves Dave's group, which is a very specific group of people, and Quantaphonics, another very specific group of people. And then maybe like Lamont Lander somewhere stuck in the middle, or maybe somebody else stuck in the middle that would fit that. Maybe
That's a great bill.
I will say we don't have enough festival activity in this town where you can go for one ticket for a whole day. You can see 7 different bands and get exposed to 7 different things.
And make it a thing where the best bands, they really want to do it, where it's a cool enough thing where it's because I'm not saying there aren't a lot of effective and good things, but like anything else, people want to do some things more than others. They're more interesting to them, whatever. Lamont Landers, what a talented guy. If I was an A&R guy and I was looking at Huntsville people, he would be the first guy I would sign, and I'd make a lot of money.
Yeah, tremendous. And again, this is another one of those frustration moments where we just don't know enough about him. We just don't get to see him often enough. We're going to fix that. Actually, sorry, you're going to fix that. All right, listen, I want to wrap this up with a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
Just about, what's the story, Doug?
I actually had somebody watching Facebook Live here had a question.
Let's hear it. Come on, what do you got? Somebody from...
I don't have the money I borrowed from you.
Bob Bailey?
Oh, yeah, Bob Bailey.
Bob Bailey has said, what did Matt think of the biopic Dirt about Molly Crew that's been playing on Netflix? Have you seen it?
Hang on, we got to repeat this. So Doug is repeating a question from our mutual friend, the author, Robert Bailey, the author of...
Fourth novel now. That's
the fourth
great.
novel is coming out. He's having a book signing at OTBX. Shameless promotion coming out. Anyway, that's why we're doing this. No, secret's out. The biopic, the Dirt, which is the Motley Crue thing. You and I have talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
What is your thought about?
It's exactly like the band. It's trashy and fun and brilliant in some parts and embarrassing in some parts.
Like the band.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, okay, so people, the thing is kind of, if you hate that kind of music, you'll hate the movie. Just like I'm not particularly, I like Ring of Fire and Jackson by Johnny Cash, but I'm not really going to wear out the rest of it. So I've never made it 30 minutes into his biopic.
Right.
And I understand his greatness, but and the thing that's interested me that it's gotten trashed for is its depiction of how the rock lifestyle was within and stuff with, hard living, groupies or whatever. Well, that's everybody involved will tell you that's how it was. And hard rock just gets, whereas like a year ago when Guns N' Roses did a box set for Appetite Destruction, and they also had the Lies stuff on there and some outtakes and stuff, and they didn't put 1 in a Million on there. And they tried to make that a news story, certain parts of the media. So which is it? Do you want it to be accurate how it was, or you don't want it through a 2000 and whatever sensibility?
Right.
And, it'd been stupid of Guns N' Roses to put that on there.
Well, 1 in a Million, a very controversial song because of the lyrics and
right, yeah,
and so on. So what you're saying is they removed that in order to be PC in an era representing a band that clearly was never PC and didn't care to be.
It was a dangerous band for dangerous times.
Which is why they were so popular. Right. So Netflix clearly did like this a study of demographics and decided that a Motley Crue biopic would go because people our age would devour it.
Well, if you've read that book, and who knows how much of it is true, but it's a super readable book. But the thing about the book and the movie, to be honest, it can be kind of entertaining, and it's a page turner, all the, the narcotics and the groupies or whatever and the hard living. But it doesn't get interesting to me until it starts getting terrible for the band, when Vince Neil's kid unfortunately got cancer, when they kick Vince out of the band and the band's not as popular as anymore, the stuff Tommy goes through, the stuff Mick goes through with his illness, like that's when it's interesting. Both the movie and the book is when this once Well, first off, it starts off cool because they start off like a crappy little band that's a nobody, just like
Right.
anybody else. Nicky
Right.
was in a band called London, which was a little successful in Hollywood, but
They actually had to set themselves on fire to differentiate themselves from other bands.
they had to set us on
That
fire.
was their marketing strategy.
And Too Fast for Love is the best Crew album and one of the best of that
Yeah.
album because it's a band that eventually got huge when they were really small. And there's nothing more compelling. That's when all they had was a room and a guitar,
Mhm.
you know, and
Three quarters of the truth.
and 3 chords and maybe half the truth. But I mean, that's when that movie and that book's interesting to me, is when this once mega band was getting toppled over.
So you've covered tons and tons of musicians. You've interviewed everybody that's anybody. I mean, you have an incredible array of experiences with musicians. Is there a band or an artist that you think is underappreciated, underreported, undercovered that you would consider?
Underappreciated, well, I think kind of the Hands of Time have done that to the Black Crowes a little bit.
Yeah.
The first 2 Crowes records are pretty damn good, particularly the second one. But, you know, they weren't metal, they weren't grunge. So they kind of, and, you know, I've interviewed those guys a lot, and having hung out with one of them in person, I can tell you why the band with arena talent isn't playing arenas now. It's because it's not because they're not good enough.
Yeah.
But I think they're underappreciated. A thing I like to think about, who's going to be the next big mega reunion? Like, is it REM at Coachella in 2 years? Is it the White Stripes? Like, who's the reunion out there?
Okay, let me ask you this. This is an important. I'm glad you brought that up because I was talking to Dave about this because Dave Anderson, who was 2 episodes ago, guitar player for Atlanta Rhythm Section, and an amazingly popular band for a pretty specific period of time, and with really good songs. They've got 4 or 5 really good songs.
Musicians love that band too.
So looking at Dave,
Yeah.
the band is not the important. This is my assertion. The band is not important.
Mhm.
The song is what's important. So I would say to your question, who's the most important reunion coming up? It's the ones with the strongest song, not necessarily the strongest presentation. Like who has the greatest 3 or 4 songs? I mean,
Totally.
You go see. There are people who go see Pink Floyd for the artistry, for the production, for the stage production. There's 3 or 4 Pink Floyd songs that bring the house down.
And we'll always do
that. When the Atlanta Rhythm Section hits the stage and says, "Hey, we have some new stuff,"
okay, here's
somebody
the
pulls
deal.
the fire alarm. You know,
I mean, here's the deal. Bands playing bars. If you're in a venue playing mix of covers and originals, I never understand. You never tell them before you play the original that it was an original. You tell them after.
right?
Bands playing
Yeah,
arenas and big venues.
yeah.
You never tell them it's a new song until after the song.
Dude, let me just tell you how horrible REM would be at Coachella. Just that sounds like the worst ticket.
Yeah.
Michael
maybe
Stipe would. That's not a good combination.
They probably have enough money they don't have to do it. That's another thing. I mean, eventually the numbers, it's all numbers. You put enough zeros in front of people. I guess Robert Plant's the only person that is.
I'm thinking Oasis has got to be set for a reunion.
I would think so, but they're kind of weird in that they were never really that big in America except for the Morning Glory album.
Right.
Before and after, they were a niche band and they weren't that big, but they've become a bigger draw here for media because the brothers have this loud humor.
Hate each other. Yeah.
And they're funny as hell.
Yeah.
And they talk in the accent. It's basically the Black Crowes brothers, but with British accents, but funnier.
It's like Snatch with talent. You know, it's like we don't know what they're saying, but they're really
the movie.
They got some catchy songs, and Wonderwall is a meme now. You know. All right, Matt Wake, you're like, this is so fun, and we could talk like this when we have actually like a rambling conversation for a long time, and so good. Listen, this is what I need people to understand about you is that you are you're telling the story of the Huntsville music scene. Like you are actively telling the story, but you're also participating in it. which is like gonzo journalism, at its finest. You are a supreme talent, and someone's opinion, your opinion matters, and you don't use it enough. I'm going to say that.
Well, that's tricky because when you're reporting the news, you don't want to be the news.
I agree with that. However, you have a very powerful voice.
Well, thanks.
In the life of a city that needs that voice.
Well, it's easy to write about cool stuff, and they're all the amazing stories. And every time I've been working here 7 years, and you'll think, man, I've looked under every corner to find the cool stories. And, all of a sudden, here's a guy who was a roadie for Queen for a bunch of years. All of a sudden, here's a guy who's a guitar tech for the Stars. Kelvin Wooten, the R&B multi-instrumentalist, producer, and engineer. He has a lot of stuff that isn't even on his credits. I don't want to get into why that's not on there, but that's his story to tell. But the list of people he's worked with is just like every big hitter in R&B.
We can see his house from here. So this is your charge and mine, really, and really everybody's.
Kelvin would make a great guest.
Well, I'm working on that. Don't put pressure on me. Is our responsibility, I think, is to lift these people up to be recognized, so that when the next band that plays, the local band that plays at one of these venues we've mentioned already, that there are 10 more people because you said so. There's 20 more people because we highlighted them. That's the responsibility of people who have a voice, and you have the strongest voice in town. And you're a supreme talent. You're a hell of a guy, and you deserve all the credit you get right now and then some. So,
well, thank you.
I'm going to thank you for being here. I'm going to thank you for pressuring me into doing this.
You're doing great with it, by the way.
Well, I appreciate it.
Can I tell you real quick, just a handful of people who both locally and nationally made me want to write or more into it really quick?
Yeah, of course.
So when I was a kid growing up in Huntsville, more reading sports stuff, there was a guy named John Pruitt, who was a very good writer for the Times for a long time.
Yeah, sports editor for the Times for a long time.
There's a guy that was with them for a long time, another sports guy, just effortlessly good, Tim McCarter, who was very, very good.
Yeah.
There's a guy who, for us now, writes about a lot of space stuff and government stuff, Lee Roop. He's been a columnist for the Times. He's been a NASA reporter for a long time. Just very talented, just like communicates an idea in a interesting, quick, efficient way. And as I got older and started reading Stephen Davis, The Hammer of the Gods, God, I've read that probably 30 times. Yeah. There is a guy named, Kurt Loder, David Frick from Rolling Stone, just a very musical, no nonsense guy. Chuck Klosterman, who is like the Jimi Hendrix of pop culture writing. Whenever I'm at a thing where I'm like, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do here, or like a guitarist will go, what would Jimi Hendrix do? I do. What would Chuck Klosterman do? A lot of other, Rob Sheffield. For a long time, I was kind of a rockist in my writing. Like, I realized you could see when like a pop artist or a country artist or whatever is good. But Rob Sheffield's a guy I learned that pop music can be really good. Like that was a key leap for me. Is I could always write about rock in my sleep
because that was your thing.
Because that was my thing. I'm connected to it. The vibrations connect with me. But like when I got where I could write strongly and confidently about other types of music. And there's a lot of writers out there, I see that's a hole in their game, is they can't see, your idea of perfection may be Springsteen or Steely Dan, but if you can't see Guns N' Roses is a hell of a hard rock band, then that's a hole in your game. One more writer I want to mention is this guy named Stanley Booth. He's a Southern guy. He wrote the only credible book on the Rolling Stones besides Keith Richards' book and the other guys in the Stones have written book. It's called True Adventures of the Rolling Stone. True Adventures of the Rolling Stones, and it's amazing, great writing. And he's like a Georgia guy, so it's got a Southern kind of thing. So I'm okay, but those are the people that you should really read.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's probably one of the questions I should have asked you earlier. Thank you for, mentioning that. I need to take interview lessons from you at some point.
No.
You did a great job.
I just wanted to give some props.
Yeah, no, you did great. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Really, I appreciate
Good talking.
it. This is a fledgling podcast. As I mentioned before, most everything I do is fledgling, but this is particularly
Fledgling
right
sounds like a metal band.
doesn't it? Man, thank you. Thank you. Hey, you are awesome and a great friend. Thank you for being here.
Back to you, Bill.
Matt Wake, everybody. The Matt Wake. Thank you so much.
The Bill Fowler.
Thanks, producer.